Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Monarch: Legacy of Monsters Season 1, Episode 5. It's called The Way Out. So spoilers for the episode, and I can't help but notice as I'm looking at IMDb, which I usually have up just in case I forget a character name or something like that this episode has a notably lower average rating than all the other ones. Now, it could be that people genuinely just don't like this episode, but having glanced at episode ratings for multiple shows throughout the years, I am a little concerned it's probably just because a character turned out to be gay in this. Maybe I'm being very cynical there, but if other shows and low average ratings are anything to go by, I suspect that may have something to do with it. So yeah, I think as always with this show, there's good and there's bad, and I've already looked around and saw that some people think this is the worst episode because they thought it was boring, but probably because there was no new monster action and whatever else. And there are, I think, legitimate critiques in this episode. Characters occasionally are doing some dumb things, like singing when they know they have to be quiet because there's soldiers looking in the area for potential trespassers, for example, one that comes up later. But I like this episode more than the last couple, in fact. Maybe even more than episode 2, honestly, now I'm thinking about it. And I think it's really down to two reasons. One of the strongest things about episode 1 was the family drama and like Kate finding out about this secret second family. Honestly, I think her mum now finding out about all this, now that we're in San Francisco and we meet her mom and she meets Kintaro and we get the other side of that coin, I thought that was really well done. I thought the reaction of the mum, the actress, did a good job with the performance, and I thought the awkward tension of it really kind of felt true to me. I was kind of into that. I was also into the characters making proactive choices to keep looking, despite the fact that they've been, they were detained briefly by Monarch but let go, given plane tickets and passports and whatever to get home, and that's all fine. But the other thing I really liked about this episode is that it dove deeper into the aftermath of G-Day, of what happens in a city that has been the battleground for Godzilla and these other mutos, because this is only a year after that movie, right? This is 2015. It's only 1 year later, and right away seeing that there's like temporary housing set up from FEMA, and the idea that there's like quarantine zones and like they're having to like clamp down on looters, and most of the city's like a war zone. It's destroyed. It's dangerous. I love seeing all that stuff. It was kind of like adding all this weight to this is what's happening on the ground when all this stuff's happening, because when I watched Godzilla 2014, and I really enjoyed that movie, I'm rooting for Godzilla. I'm like, yeah, like, come on, save the day, like, throw a building into the bad monster. But this is sort of adding this weight where, yeah, all these people on the ground are losing their homes, they're losing loved ones, and all this stuff. And it's very reminiscent of like a post-hurricane or a post-flood or a literal war zone or something like that, where you've got the people picking up the pieces after the fact and looking for loved ones, looking for items and belongings that meant something to them and stuff like that. I thought all that was really cool world building. And on top of that, I also really liked the flashbacks this episode. Now, I was a little sad that we didn't really get any flashback to the 50s, other than one little bit of home video footage that Randa shot. But we do get flashbacks to right before G-Day and G-Day itself from Kate's perspective again, but now this is more kind of like her personal life on the build-up to it. We see her as a teacher. We see that she did have a girlfriend that she was about to move into, and perhaps the most interesting detail here is not only did she have a girlfriend, that I'm going to a leap ahead and assume that she died in G-Day, possibly. But also, the big thing for me was that she seems to have been cheating on her girlfriend. And I like that reveal where we go to her waking up in bed and it's a different woman that's next to her, because it kind of puts in perspective how she's been angry at her dad for having this second wife, for having this second family, for cheating on her mum. The whole time she's kind of been feeling guilty when it's come up, and she's perhaps been even more harsh and spiteful about it because it's actually a reflection on her that she was guilty of a very similar thing, and it's why it's been very, very tough for her to kind of she's almost like when she's been berating her dad when talking about him in the early episodes, it's almost like she's talking about herself, and she's been extra spiteful because of that. And I thought that was a really interesting wrinkle. I thought this did a lot to flesh out Kate as a character, and I thought they handled her really well in episode 1. It was one of the more compelling things in the first episode, was her meeting the secret second family. But seeing the other side of that now, with the mum, who, much like Kintaro's mum, is a very sweet woman who actually you feel really sad for in the scene. But you also have these personal backstory moments for Kate herself, who, so honestly, her going through the quarantine zone, going through in San Francisco, seeing all the buildings, seeing the bridge is still destroyed. They've not just quickly rebuilt it. It's only been a year. There's too much to fix. Having her go through that and have these moments of flashbacks, and seeing the moment where she chose to go on the school bus with the kids, because she's not outright said to the others yet that she lost a bus full of kids on that day. I think all that stuff to me was really compelling. It's some of the better writing the show's had since episode 1. And for me, it made this the most fulfilling one, even though there wasn't any new monster stuff. We saw, obviously, clips of the stuff from the movie. We saw clips of Godzilla fighting things, and I really appreciated all the little details to make her feel guilty about her attitude towards it, not only in her personal life with the girlfriend, but even when she first sees the kids looking at something on their phone, and she's clearly not been paying attention to the news enough to know what they're looking at, and just says, it's probably just some hoax, don't pay attention to it. I really like that, because I think that's showing she's just trying to keep the kids calm. She doesn't realize and she's arguably even trying to convince herself that it's not a real thing. Obviously, the tone changes completely when the principal comes in a minute later and says, hey, we may have to evacuate, we're monitoring the situation, like we're on high alert here because the big stuff's going down. And immediately the tone changes. But the idea that she was downplaying it beforehand, just adding to that guilt, all of that, I think, works well. But like I said, there are also weird little moments that felt a bit stupid to me, particularly the one I mentioned earlier, where Kintaro, and while it's a sweet scene from the context of him trying to cheer his sister up by singing a song that he knows his dad's sung in the past, and that she would probably respond to that, and she does smile when he starts singing it, it felt really stupid because they were literally just dodging soldiers in the quarantine zone mere minutes before, and right after they're done singing, they turn the corner and there's soldiers and they have to go running away from them, and we get them hiding in the subway and all that. It just felt really silly and reckless, and I guess you could say that's part of Kintaro's character at this point, because he also loots a bag of crisps at one point in this episode. Admittedly, as far as looting goes, it's pretty low in the scale, but yeah, it just maybe they're just trying to establish that that's what he's like. But anyway, the whole mission though is to get to the dad's office. Obviously, we've been to his office in Tokyo, but he also had an office in San Francisco where he spent half of his life. So they go to the office. There's no obvious safe or anything like that. It ends up being a trick that basically Kintaro used in one of his first art shows, and presumably either he got that from his dad or his dad got this from him, but it's like a trick with the light coming through the window that hits the key points on the map, which indicates where he was going, because it starts off in Tokyo, and it goes to Alaska, and seemingly the next step is Africa. Whether or not that means they're going to Africa next episode, we'll see. But that was the main things with that. I did think it was a little bit strange that they did a whole thing, because the mum's job helps them get into the city, because the mum's part of an official team that goes in and like looks for belongings for people. So her and her kinda boyfriend are, they're official, they've got badges and all that, and they sneak them in. and that's all fine. And I thought early on in this bit of the episode where she says, "Hey, we have to leave at 8 a.m. You have to be here so we can take you back out." I thought there was going to be more of a build of tension, and the idea being that they might not make it back in time. I thought there was going to be a race to get back to the truck and the meeting point before 8 a.m. And they actually don't do anything with it. Like they literally cut from them in the office figuring out the things and saying, "Okay, we got to go." Cut to them just arriving with no tension whatsoever. That just felt like a missed opportunity to actually have some fun. And again, not monster fun. We're not doing monsters this episode necessarily, but I thought that would have been a fun sort of like them sort of being in this tense situation, having to prove themselves again. This time without Kurt Russell to help. So I don't know. I feel like they could have done something else with that to make the climax of that part of the story exciting. But hey, it's not a huge deal. I think the other parts of the episode are a bit murkier. The stuff with Monarch and them keeping Kurt Russell like locked up and wanting answers from him. I did enjoy a couple of the things that he brings up. Not even because it was new, but just because it's the first time anyone in the show has actually said this, which is the fact that Godzilla was the good guy in the movie, right? For all the destruction that happened, Godzilla, they wanted him to win, because Kurt Russell says, Shaw says to, what's her name? The head lady here, I keep forgetting her name. Verdugo. He says to Verdugo, what if Godzilla hadn't won? Right? For 60 years, Monarch's been aware of monsters and aware that something like this might happen, and what did we actually accomplish in preventing, all it came down to was let them fight. He quotes the movie directly. And what if Godzilla hadn't won? I just think that this show is very much treated G-Day as a disaster, which it absolutely was. And I think this episode did a good job showing that it was a disaster, and I love seeing that perspective. But in the movie, you're rooting for Godzilla because he is the good guy. He's the one who's going to stop the evil monsters from just doing whatever they want. He's here to restore the balance. So I like that being brought up, and sort of just an acknowledgement of that. And they're moving him at the end of the episode. I don't think anything really meaningful came out of the conversations as of yet. They just want answers. They want to know what was in Randa's files, and Kurt just kind of keeps dodging. I'm saying Kurt. I should say Shaw. I guess the one interesting thing was an implication that at one point Verdugo early on says, like, do they know what their father did, or something to that effect, and Shaw said, no, they don't know a thing. I was very careful. I made sure of it. So there's something they know that they don't want the kids to know. And I do wonder if it's going to turn out that the dad in some way triggered the monsters coming out at some point. Like maybe he did something that woke up the Mutos or something. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just spitballing. But it was a key little detail there that seemed worth mentioning. The other big thing, of course, is that May is approached early on by Duval, the security lady. She says to her about how you're smart, you've covered your tracks, yada yada yada, but you're smart, you should have a backup, and gives her a card. The idea being that she wants to recruit her to help her, to feed her information, so that Monarch will help give her a path back home, a clean slate, whatever it may be. And at the end of the episode, it does seem that May is taking her up on that offer by calling her in secret, away from the others. And I think it's an okay plot point. We'll see where it goes. I think all this side of stuff with the actual Monarch, it did feel just kind of whatever to me. It was like, okay, we're just doing the plot points, and hopefully the next part of this is more interesting in and of itself. Whereas I thought the main trio and what they were up to, by and large, I was into watching. I was enjoying the character drama. And I really can't compliment the handling of Kintaro and May meeting Kate's mum, and then Kate's mum being hit with the bombshell that his last name is Randa. Just all the little awkward interactions afterwards where he tries to help her pick up something and she's like, no, I've got it, leave me, stop it. It really felt natural. It felt like the performances were really capturing this awkwardness. Even when Kintaro and May just go to the other bedroom to let Kate and her mum have a private conversation, but they can still hear everything because it's very loud. and Kentaro just quietly tries to shut the door because he doesn't want to hear it. I thought it captured just the real human feeling of all of this, right? For as complex and as weird as all these family connections are, because this guy had two families, and one of the things that I thought they were going to do, or at least say verbally, I think it was there in the performance actually, because I thought she was going to say it, is that Kate's mum was looking at Kentaro once or twice in a way that, to me, I think she was seeing her husband. I think she was like recognizing her husband's son. She was seeing the similarities that have always been passed down to him. And how weird that must be when this is not her kid. This is someone else's kid. That Kate does tell her by the end that she believes that their father is alive and that they're going to go looking for them. And that's actually the other little key detail about Kate that, I thought was great to flesh out her character, is that she's been kind of cut off from the world this past year, ever since G-Day, the horror of losing those kids and whatever ending to her relationship happened. She was just hiding in this bedroom in her mum's place. She was not interacting with the world, and her mum kind of forced her to go out and go on this trip to Tokyo to give her just something to do, effectively, to get her out, to make her put her back in the world again. This idea that she has been this, PTSD ridden character, and again, just adding weight to this is how G-Day affected the people on the ground. Maybe not all of their stories are going to be as intricate as Kate's are, but the idea that people lost things that day, they lost people that day, and we're really selling the weight of that. So, yeah, I actually like this episode more than it seems. I think most of the internet seemed to. I don't think it's amazing or flawless. Like I said, the B plot stuff is it's just kind of there. It's chugging along. It's getting to the next points. I'm curious to see where they go with that. Tim seemed to want to recruit the young characters, and the others are like, please. So we're not doing that yet, although I suspect that maybe by the end of the show we'll do something with that. I don't know. I enjoyed the fleshing out of Kate's character, and I enjoyed the mission to go into the quarantine zone and to go just a simple, like, we have to get here and get information, so we're going to go on this little trip. Some of the steps along the way from an actual plot perspective were a little bit silly, but the actual character drama and the flashbacks and the building up of the effects of G-Day, both at the time and in the year since, I really enjoyed all that stuff. So I definitely enjoyed this more in the last two episodes. I like 4 a little bit more than 3, and I like this more than 3 and 4 for sure. That's my thoughts on this week's Monarch. We're only halfway through the season, so we'll see what we can do from here. It's actually kind of funny how I'm so used to 8 episodes now for a show that 10 feels long, which is wild because 10 felt short compared to 13, and 13 felt short compared to the traditional network show of 22. But we're at a point now where so many shows have been about 8 episodes that 10 is starting to feel like it's a bit long. So maybe we'll get to the end of this and I'll feel like, you know what, they padded this out by a couple of episodes and maybe they could have tightened it up a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to say that halfway through, but we'll see what we're doing next week. But that's my thoughts. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff helps out a bunch if you do. More people will find the channel and the show, so please hit the buttons. And of course you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble, including monthly Columbo reviews. So do that. And of course, it would be weird not to mention that there's so much praise right now for Godzilla -1. It's not out in the UK yet, and it's getting a very, very, very limited showing when it does come out in theaters. I'm going to try and go see it, but we won't be reviewing it on our sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, until early next year when it's available, digitally at home. So both me and David, who does the podcast with me, can see it. But we're doing Shin Godzilla for January, and then we'll be doing -1 a little bit later. And then, of course, we'll be doing Godzilla Cross Kong, The New Empire, when that's out in theaters in, was it March? I think that's out, March or April. So go look for that. In fact, if I didn't mention this already, like it wasn't David, it was myself and Tara who did the previous movies in this franchise over in the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I'll plug that while I'm here, plugging all this other shit. But yeah, lots of Godzilla stuff, lots of worthwhile Godzilla stuff to talk about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to -1. I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?